Greetings, my fellow film lovers and sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy Memphis, South Florida. And today's day is Friday, April 12th, 2019. So let us begin. Thank you for tuning in, my friends. Yeah, I'm in the heart of Fort Lauderdale. You may see some echoing and all that. I'm at the Park Mall, I'll call it. We can turn out, get some businesses here going. Well, it's not too bad. Little parking lot, so garage is all combined in one. Little pizza place around the corner over here. You know, they're doing good. Just came out like a month ago, so support the little shops here, mom and pop facilities, because hey, that's what makes towns unique. So the question is this: with the case of Julian Assange, has Pandora's box been finally opened? Something to think about. Because if you remember Charles Hebdo, what happened to that facility when they were like doing, I would say, satire, political satire, and what happened to them, and you know how I felt about it if you've been hearing my show in the past. And of course, Michael Hastings and the woman from Malta, the bomb got detonated. And of course, political prisoners in this United States as we speak for criticizing the corruption of our U.S. government, a la Schaeffer Cox. If you haven't heard about him, I am going to put a link in my footnotes and give you a little brief. So I'll put the website, and I'm going to add the year of the Jubilee as well, which many of them, whistleblowers, press activists, have been put in prison for the same thing. Something to look at. Julian Assange is just an example. I'm just wondering, how deep does the rabbit hole go? I'm not too fond of it? Absolutely not. But he's not the only game in town, with all due respect. There's going to be a big rally happening at the Mar-a-Lago, or Trump's facility, in the heart of Palm Beach, Florida, from 4 to 6 p.m. this Sunday. If you can make it out there, it'd be great. I would love to see you. I may be heading out there too. So just check it out. Made you a podcast on it. I'm not so sure it's to be announced, but you'll know. All you gotta do is wing it. All right, so we're gonna be talking about a few more things in reference to Julian Assange, and this is why, my friends, we gotta keep fighting the good fight. So this one here, Consortium News, did this share this with us by Jonathan Cook, which is a site called jonathan-cook.net. It says here, 7 years of lies about Assange won't stop now. As a researcher, one of the few towering figures of our time was reduced to nothing more than a sex pest and squiffy bail skipper, writes Jonathan Cook. Yeah, I'm trying to add that up, right? For 7 years, the moment Julian Assange sought refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, they have been telling us we were wrong. They were paranoid conspiracy theorists. We were told that there was no real threat of Assange's extradition to the United States. That it was all in our fevered imaginations. For 7 years, we had to listen to a chorus of journalists, politicians, and experts telling us that Assange was nothing more than a fugitive from justice, and that the British and Swedish legal systems could rely on to handle this case in full accordance with the law. Bravely, mainstream voice was raised in his defense in all that time. From the moment he sought asylum, Assange was cast as an outlaw. His work as a founder of WikiLeaks, a digital platform that for the first time in history gave ordinary people a glimpse into the darkest recesses of the most secure vaults in the deepest of the deep state, was erased from the record. Assange was reduced from one of the few towering figures of our time, a man who will have a central place in history books. If we were as a species lived long enough to write those books, nothing more than a sex pest and a scruffy bail skipper. Assange in before 2006. Political and media class crafted a narrative of half-truths about the sex charges Assange was under investigation for in Sweden. They overlooked the fact that Assange had been allowed to leave Sweden by the original investigator who dropped the charges only for them to be revived by another investigator with a well-documented political agenda. They failed to mention that Assange was always willing to be questioned by Swedish prosecutors in London. It has occurred in dozens of other cases involving extradition proceedings to Sweden. It was almost as if Swedish officials did not want to test the evidence they claim to have in their possession. The media and political couriers endlessly emphasized Assange's bail violation in the UK, ignoring the fact that asylum seekers fleeing legal and political prosecution don't usually honor bail conditions imposed by the very state authorities from which they are seeking asylum. So what he's saying? They're a bunch of liars. Liar, liar, pants is on fire. Now we'll continue on. Ignoring mounting evidence. The political and media establishment ignored the mounting evidence of a secret grand jury in Virginia formulating charges against Assange and ridiculed WikiLeaks concerns that the Swedish case might be covered for a more sinister attempt by the U.S. to extradite Assange and lock him away in a high-security prison. It has happened to whistleblower Chelsea Manning. They belittled the 2016 verdict on a panel of the United Nations legal scholars that the UK was arbitrarily detaining Assange. The media were more interested in the welfare of his cat. Of course, there's a pro-Assange protest at the Ecuadorian embassy in 2016. There's a photo for that. They ignored the fact that after Ecuadorian changed presidents were one keen to win favor with Washington, Assange was placed under more and more severe forms of solitary confinement. He was denied access to visitors and basic means of communications, violating both his asylum status and his human rights and threatening his mental and physical well-being. Equally, they ignored the fact that Assange had been given diplomatic status by Ecuador as well as Ecuadorian citizenship. Britain was obligated to allow him to leave the embassy, use his diplomatic immunity to travel unhindered to Ecuador. No mainstream journalists or politicians thought this significant either. They turned a blind eye to the news that after refusing to question Assange in the UK, Swedish prosecutors had quietly dropped the case against him in 2015. Sweden had kept the decision under wraps for more than 2 years. It was a freedom of information request by an ally of Assange, not a media outlet, that unearthed documents showing that Swedish investigators had, in fact, wanted to drop the case against Assange back in 2013. The UK, however, insisted that to carry on with the charade, Assange could remain locked up. The British official emailed the Swedes, "Don't you dare get cold feet." Ooh, how pretentious that is, right? That superb rhetoric. Documents destroyed. Most of those other documents relating to these conversations were unavailable. They had been destroyed by the UK's Crown Prosecution Service in violation of protocol. But no one in the political and media establishment cared, of course. Similarly, they ignored the fact that Assange was forced to hold up for years in the embassy under the most intense form of house arrest, even though he no longer had a case to answer in Sweden. They told us, apparently, in all seriousness, he had to be arrested for his bail infraction, something that would normally be dealt with by a fine. How pathetic. A bunch of wankers out there think the people in Britain and around the world are the, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I will pursue. And possibly most egregiously of all, the most other media refused to acknowledge that Assange was a journalist and publisher. Well, some people may just call him, he's not a journalist. Doesn't matter. He's with the press. Even though, by failing to do so, they expose themselves to the future use of the same doctrination sanctions should they or their publications ever be need to be silenced. They signed off on the right of the U.S. authorities to seize any foreign journalist anywhere in the world and lock them up or her out of sight. Open the door to a new special form of rendition for journalists. This was never about speeding or bail violations or even about the discredited Russiagate narrative, as anyone who was paying Vegas attention should have been able to work out. It was about the U.S. deep state doing everything in its power to crush WikiLeaks and make an example of its founder. It was also about making sure that there would never again be a leak like that for 7 years, from the moment Julian Assange sought refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. They had been telling us we were wrong. That we were paranoid conspiracy theorists. We were told there was no real threat of Assange's extradition to the United States. That was all a fevered imagination, and it looks like it says it again. Yes, it did. Let me just see this for a moment. Excuse me, folks. I'm just very interesting here indeed. I'm just gonna looks like let me check my friends. As I try to get this going. Alright, here we go. Okay, that's good. That was documents destroyed. There's the half-truths, yeah. Sorry about that. Looks like got a little bit one moment here. Okay, don't get the cold feet. Media. Most of the documents related to this conversation were unavailable. They have been destroyed by the UK's Prosecution Service. Okay, egregiously. Yeah, looks like I got lost here, my friends. Human rights violations. Alright, British authorities. Charges. Okay, you know what? That's going to keep it on my footnotes. I'm going to start from here. Now the pretense is over. The British. Wait. It was about make sure there would never again be a leak, collateral murder. Alright, I'll just start from back here again. This was never about speeding or bail violations or even the discredited Russiagate narrative, as anyone who was paying the Vegas attention should have been able to work out. It was about the U.S. deep state doing everything in its power to crush WikiLeaks, make an example of its founder. I hate when they do this to me. Good grief. Thank you. It was about making sure that there would never again be a leak of a collateral murder. The military video released by WikiLeaks in 2007 that showed U.S. soldiers celebrating as they murdered Iraqi civilians. It was about making sure that there would never again be a dump of U.S. diplomatic cables like those released in 2010 that revealed the secret machinations of the U.S. empire to dominate the planet. Whatever the cost in human rights violations, now the pretense is over. The British police invaded the diplomatic territory of Ecuador, invited in by Ecuador after it tore it up. Assange's asylum status to smuggle him off to jail. 2 vassal states cooperating to do the bidding of the U.S. empire. The arrest was not to help 2 women in Sweden or to enforce a minor bail infraction. No, the British authorities are acting on an extradition warrant from the United States. The charges of the U.S. authorities have conduit relate to WikiLeaks' earliest work exposing the U.S. military's war crimes in Iraq. The stuff that we all once agreed was in the public interest that British and U.S. media clamored to publish themselves. Still, the media and political class and turning a blind eye was an outrage. Where's the outrage and lies that we have been served for these past 7 years? Where's the conditions that having been full go for so long? Where's the fury at the most basic press freedom, the right to publish, being trashed, to silence Assange? Where's the willingness finally to speak up in the silence defense? It's not there. There will be no indication at the BBC or the Guardian or CNN. Just curious and passive, even gently mocking reporting of Assange's fate. And that is because these journalists, politicians, and experts never really believed anything they said. They knew all along that the U.S. wanted to silence Assange and to crush WikiLeaks. They knew that all along they didn't care. In fact, they happily conspired to pave the way for today's kidnapping of Assange. They did so because they are not there to represent the truth or to stand up to ordinary people. or to protect the free press, or even to enforce the rule of law. They don't care about any of that. That they are to protect their careers and a system that rewards them with money and influence. They want to upstart like Assange kicking over their apple cart. Now they will spin us a whole new set of deceptions and distractions about Assange to keep us as an exercise, to keep us from being incensed as our rights are rooted away, and to prevent us from realizing that Assange's rights and our own are indivisible. We stand or fall together. Interesting blog there, my friends, and I have to agree with what Mr. Cook has to say. Because the truth of the matter is, folks, what you see out there right now in the idiot box, and some of the mainstream good amount of mainstream reporters are nothing more than prostitutes. Uncle Toms and Aunt Mamas to the tyrannical masters. Plain and simple. This is why they are desperate, because they are getting their asses whipped in this information war. Probably one of the biggest mistakes the order made in a long time. Since the new millennium, the beginning of the new millennium. Many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And even a person like myself, not created by Congressman Ian Omar, in a lot of areas. However, she has the guts to point out certain things that many of us have addressed. They call her the nut job. They think people still believe they attacked us and not because of our freedoms. Give me a break. It's pathetic. A lot of folks, you better start out there. If you haven't learned yet, you're just in the twilight zone. And you wake up in the morning and go, Bizarro is my Lord and Savior. The war on the press is a conflagration with every single free-thinking individual around the world. Doesn't matter what you look like, gender, etc. He's just an example. Like him or not, it's a burden on everybody. And I'm going to continue on here. As it comes from Catelyn Jones and Paul Craig Roberts and Doug Owen from Blacklisted News, shared this on their site. It says here, how can you be certain that the charges against Assange is fraudulent? Assange sits in the jail cell today after being betrayed by the Ecuadorian government in his home country of Australia. A British judge named Michael Snow has found the WikiLeaks founder guilty of violating bail conditions. He inserted himself into the annals of history by labeling Assange as a narcissist who cannot get beyond his own selfish interests. So I'm just wondering if this judge is on his hands and knees for a living. Are they sir? So that tells you how much of a fair and impartial legal proceeding we can expect to see from the British judicial process on this matter. But for the reason that Assange has been surrendered by the Ecuadorian government, imprisoned by the British government, and ignored by the Australian government is not directly related to any of those governments, but that of the United States of America. An unsealed indictment from the Trump administration's District Court of Eastern District of Virginia, accompanied by an extradition request, charges Assange with conspiracy to commit computer intrusion for agreeing to break a password to classify U.S. computer company during the Chelsea Manning's 2010 leak of government documents exposing U.S. war crimes. The charge is premised on a fraudulent and manipulative distortion of reality, and you may be about 100% certain of it. Let me explain. You can be absolutely certain that this charge is bogus because it isn't based on any new information. The facts of the case have not changed. The information hasn't changed. The only narrative has changed. In 2010, the United States opened a secret grand jury in Virginia to investigate whether Assange and WikiLeaks could be prosecuted for the publication of the Manning leaks. And then Attorney General Eric Holder announced that the Obama administration was conducting an active, ongoing criminal investigation into the matter. Yeah, that's one of the great chunks of our time. The Trump administration has not tuned up any new evidence that the Obama administration was unable to find this active, ongoing criminal investigation. U.S. government surveillance has surely acquired some new tricks since 2010, but time travel isn't one of them. And indeed, it does not claim to have turned up any new evidence. There's a huge myth being misreported about today's indictment of Assange. The claim that Assange tried to help Manning circumvent a password to cover her tracks isn't new. The Obama DOJ knew about it since 2011, but those chose not to prosecute him. The story on this soon, led by Glenn Greenwald. There's a huge myth being misreported about today's indictment of Assange. Journalist Glenn Greenwald tweeted today, claim that Assange tried to help Manning circumvent a password to cover her tracks isn't new. The DOJ knew about it since 2011, but chose not to prosecute him. Story on this soon. Holder chose not to prosecute Assange based on the same information Trump DOJ cited. Greenwald added, the weakness of the U.S. charge against Assange is shocking, tweeted NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden. The allegation he tried and failed to help crack a password during their world-famous reporting has been public for nearly a decade. It is account Obama's DOJ refused the charge, saying it endangered journalism. That is all the information that the Obama administration has access to. This is journalist Tim Schaeffer observed that alleged 2010 correspondence between Assange and Manning looks like it came straight from the NSA surveillance of the two. Yet it chose not to do what the Trump administration is currently doing because it would endanger press freedom. This means that nothing has changed since that time. Besides, A, the fact that there is now a more overly tyrannical administration in place, and B, the fact that the public has been paced into accepting the prosecution of Assange by the years of establishment propaganda. Last year, after it was revealed that the Trump administration was seeking Assange's arrest, Greenwald wrote the following. Excuse me here. The Obama DOJ, despite launching notoriously aggressive attacks on press freedoms, recognized this critical principle when it came to WikiLeaks. It spent years exploring whether it could criminally charge Assange and WikiLeaks for publishing classified information. It ultimately decided it would not do so and could not do so, consistent with the press freedom guarantee of the First Amendment. After all, the Obama DOJ concluded such a prosecution would pose a severe threat to press freedom because there would be no way to prosecute Assange for publishing classified documents without also prosecuting the New York Times, the New York Post, the Guardian, and others for doing exactly the same thing. The weakness of the U.S. charge against Assange is shocking. The allegation he tried and failed to help crack a password during their world-famous reporting has been publicly for nearly a decade. In its account, Obama's DOJ refused the charge, saying it endangered journalism. That's from that was Edward Snowden's tweet. Nothing has changed since 2010, apart from a more thoroughly propagandized populace and a more depraved U.S. government, which means that this new charge that the Trump administration issued in December 2017 is based on nothing other than a diminished respect for press freedoms and an increased willingness to crush them. This makes it fraudulent and illegitimate, and the president that is being set by it should be rejected and opposed by everyone in the world who claims to support the existence of a free press, which is capable of holding power to account. So, what are we left with? We're left with the U.S. government filing criminal charges against a journalist, and Assange is indisputably a journalist, protecting his source and encouraging his source to obtain more material, both of which are things that journalists do all the time. Excuse me here. Good grief. While the indictment against Julian Assange is closed today, charges a conspiracy to commit computer crimes and factual allegations against Mr. Assange boil down to encouraging the source to provide him information and taking efforts to protect the identity of that source. Said Assange lawyer Barry J. Pollock in a statement today, journalists around the world should be deeply troubled by these unprecedented criminal charges. There are parts of the indictment that are clearly designed to criminalize things journalists routinely do. Greenwald told CNN, while the accusation is that Assange encouraged Chelsea men to provide him with more documents than the original batch she gave him, which is something, as a journalist, I've done many times with my sources, that journalists do every day. They say, okay, thanks for this document, maybe you can get me but maybe you could get me this. They also say that they helped her to essentially cover her tracks by giving her advice about how to get this information without being detected. The only thing in the indictment is very vague. It is suggested that he tried to help her circumvent a password. It didn't seem to be successful, but it's unclear whether that was designed to get documents or to simply help her cover her tracks. But either way, it is clearly a threat to the First Amendment because it criminalizes core journalistic functions. In an article for Rolling Stone titled Why Assange Arrest Should Scare Reporters, the journalist Matt Taibbi writes the meter part of the indictment speak to more journalistic practices. It says here, reporters have extremely complicated relationships with sources, especially whistleblower types like Manning, who are often under extreme stress and emotionally vulnerable. Taibbi writes, at different times you might counsel the same person for both for and against disclosure. It's proper to work through all the reasons for actions in any direction, including weighing the public's interest, the effect on the source's conscious and mental health, and the personal and professional consequences. For this reason, placing criminal penalties on a prosecutor's interpretation of such interactions will likely put a scare into anyone involved with a national security reporting going forward. And it says here with the tweet, why the Assange arrest should scare reporters. There's a column in there from Twitter. The Espionage Act has not at this time been employed to prosecute Assange, as may have speculated it might. And the computer crimes he has been charged with carrying a maximum sentence of 5 years. But this does not mean that further, far more serious charges cannot be added once Assange is in prison on American soil, especially after his guilt in the Manning's leak has made official government dogma following the conspiracy conviction. In my opinion, this charge of Assange with a lower-level crime, not espionage, is a trick that would allow the UK to extradite him to the US with no threat of capital punishment, only to have US prosecutors do what they always do, pile on charges, tweet it, then make out the Ron Paul Liberty Report, referring to assurance sought by the UK and Ecuador that Assange would not face death penalty if extradited to the United States for the conspiracy charge. Either way, this is a cataclysmic threat to press freedoms, and the time to act is now. There's a link for that. It tells you how to do it, my friends. The U.S. government arbitrarily gifting itself to the right to use fraudulent distortions to imprison anyone in the world who publishes facts about it will chill any attempt to do so in the future and poses a far greater threat to press freedoms than anything we've seen in our lives. Anyone who sits idly about while this happens is signing over the sovereign right of every human being on this planet to hold power to account. Anyone calling themselves a journalist who does anything other than unequivocally oppose this move is confessing that they are a state propagandist. This is an intolerable plunge toward Orwellian dystopia and is an assault on human dignity itself. It's time to shake the earth and refuse to let them cross this line. Enough is enough. Roar, humans, roar. And it tells you how to get defense fund and all that here as well. And Mrs. Johnstone is correct. Another attack on natural law. Very Orwellian indeed. New World Order 101. Can't argue about that at all, folks. A lot of great investigative journalists got murdered as well. I said about Hastings and the woman from Malta, and even the late Jim Keith, who wrote the book Black Helicopters Over America. He's dead too. That happened in the 90s, if I'm correct. 1990s. Just an example. You can get a big list. You can look up investigative journalists being murdered in countries. You'd be really surprised. Someone always asked me, how come we don't have any more investigative journalists? I go, you know why? Because a lot of them are getting taken out. They take the risk, and their life's on the line. is one of the areas you have to really think about, folks. Those douchebags on TV are not going to tell you this. These lamestream garbage radio jockeys are kissing the establishment's rear end, whether if they're Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, it doesn't matter. They think alike and smell the same. Pathetic. What are you going to do about this? That's the question. But here's one thing. One commentary came from John Whitehead from the Rutherford Institute. Came out yesterday. It says here, whistleblowers such as Julian Assange, who shed light on government corruption, deserve protection, not prosecution. The Rutherford Institute has denounced the United States government's attempt to extradite and prosecute Wikileaks founder Julian Assange for his part in disclosing information related to government misconduct that is within the public's right to know. Assange was arrested on charges of helping U.S. Army whistleblower Chelsea Manning access and leak more than 700,000 classified military documents that raise significant ethical and legal questions about the government's war efforts abroad. In the absence of any real system of checks and balances among the three branches of government, i.e. with Congress, the courts, and the executive branch work together to advance the government's agenda at the expense of citizenry constitutional rights, it is more valuable than ever that the media serve as a check on the government. That is why freedom of press is such an integral part of our First Amendment, said constitutional attorney John Whitehead, president of the Rutherford Institute and author of Battlefield America, The War on the American People, which I am a supporting member of this organization. America's founders understood the importance of the press in serving as a check on the government power grabs, as well as maintaining an educated citizenry and a transparent government. But freedom of the press would not make much of a difference if journalists are afraid to shine a spotlight into the dark corners of our government and pull back the veil on corruption and wrongdoing. The government's prosecution of journalists and whistleblowers began under the Obama administration and has continued under the Trump administration. As Bloomberg News reported, Eric Holder, Attorney General under President Barack Obama, has prosecuted more government officials who allege leaks under the World War I era Espionage Act than all his predecessors combined. If this clown's running for president, boo his ass, call him a bend over Bob and Uncle Tom. And I say that ethically, not Eric Holder. Including Law and Order Republicans John Mitchell, Edward Mincy, and John Ashcroft. The indictments of 6 individuals under that spy law have drawn criticism from those who say the president's crackdown chills dissent, curtails the free press, and betrays Obama's initial promise to usher a new era of open government. The Trump administration has continued to the Obama administration's crackdown on whistleblowers. Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, a website that published secret information, news leaks, and classified media from anonymous sources, was arrested on April 11, 2019 on charges of helping U.S. Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning access and leak more than 700,000 classified military documents that portrayed the U.S. government and its military as reckless, irresponsible, and responsible for thousands of civilian deaths. One moment. Included among leaked Manning material were the collateral murder video, April 20, 2010, and the Afghan war logs, July 2010, the Iraq war logs, October 2010, a $250,000 diplomatic cables, November 2010, and Guantanamo files, April 2011. The collateral murder leak include on-site video footage of 2 U.S. AH-64 Apache helicopters engaged in a series of air-to-ground attacks, while the air crew laughed at some of the casualties. Among the casualties were 2 Reuters correspondents who were gunned down after the cameras were mistaken for weapons, and the driver who stopped to help one of the journalists. The drivers of 2 children who happened to be in the van at the time it was fired upon by U.S. forces suffered serious injuries. Manning, who was jailed for 7 years from 2010 to 2017 for leaking classified documents to WikiLeaks, was arrested in March 2019 for refusing to testify before a grand jury about Assange, placed in solitary confinement for almost a month, and remains in prison. I agree. Protect, not prosecute. If it does extradition goes through, the press is on trial. I'll let everyone know within my own nation, the United States, and the great state of Florida, to be aware. If you do nothing, you create a president that can hurt yourself. That's right. And one of the areas I like to talk about, a great quote from a gentleman. I could have it right here. I'm going to find out. I'm correct, his name is Thomas Paine. And he says here, he that would make his own liberty secure must guard even his enemy from oppression. For if he violates this duty, he establishes a president that will reach to himself. I used that quote before in reference to what happened at Charlottesville. And some people tell me, well, I hate Nazis, I don't care. You know what I gotta say? Then you're not an American. You're a treasonous parasite. I start saying that to people, they all wig out. It's not my fault if the truth hurts. If he violates you, that's a whole different ballgame. They don't like his views, you get offended? Too bad. Ridicule them. But don't get them arrested. Don't stand there and do nothing. Because if it happens to you, you'll be the one to be crying in the wind the most, with the loudest mouth. What can happen to me? That's one of the areas you have to look at. And it's interesting because I can talk about here about Schaeffer Cox, who has been prosecuted in prison for standing up. 26 years in prison for speaking up against corruption. Schaeffer Cox is a political prisoner held in a legal U.S. prison called the CMU, located in Indiana. After Alaska dismissed the bogus charges by throwing out the whole case against him, Schaeffer was targeted by the U.S. government. Can we say double jeopardy? In 2017, after a rigged trial, he was convicted and sent to one of the most inhumane prisons. In August 2017, one of the main charges was dropped by the Ninth Circuit Court, but Schaeffer still sits in prison. Schaeffer speaks from prison in his blog and his new books, Lost Lyrics of Schaeffer Cox. There's a video on here. You can go to him, SchaefferCox@gmail.com, or contact Schaeffer's Angels at 479-281-3307. Another political prisoner. So remember, Assange is said to be a political prisoner. Free press, being critical. Schaeffer Cox is the same way. And there's a big list here as well from the year of the Jubilee, or LoneStar776.com, which I'm going to leave is on here. And many of the people are serving time, including a whole bunch. Captives free. Big list. Hinkins, Jeffrey, Russell, Officer McJackland. May still be forever free, but it's a big list of folks are serving time unjustifiably. I'm going to add that to the footnotes. It's a domino effect. And this is why, in good faith, what happened to Assange has officially opened up Pandora's box. Comes to free speech. This is from the real Tom Benjamin Franklin. Name of the book. Under his timeless treasures from Benjamin Franklin. Freedom of speech. Without freedom of thought, there can be no such thing as wisdom, and no such thing as public liberty without freedom of speech, which is the right of every man as far as by it he does not hurt, control the right of another. And this is the only check ought to suffer. The only bounds is ought to know. This sacred privilege is so essential to free governments that the security of property and the freedom of speech always go together. And in those rich countries where a man cannot call his tongue his own, he can scarce call anything else his own. Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech. The administration of government is nothing else but the attendance of the trustees of the people upon the interests and affairs of the people, and as is a part of the business of the people. For those who seek alone, all public matters are so ought to be transacted, to see whatever, whether they be well or ill transacted. So it is the interest and ought to the ambition of all honest magistrates to have their deeds openly examined and publicly scanned. The only wicked governors of men dread what is said of them. He wrote that in 1722 from the book The Real Ben Franklin. You get this from National Center for Constitutional Studies. Good stuff. Right there, my friends. Self-explanatory. I support freedom of the press. I'm pro Bill of Rights. Period. You want to compromise that? You are a foe, an enemy to natural law. Don't even talk to me on the streets. You got to try to change my mind. You'd be nothing more than a useless sap. With that particular content, you make Benedict Arnold a courageous patriot. Deep down inside, you know I'm right. Got enough of that. I'm going to add one more here for what is going on. Got one more. Came out in the 6th by the 10th Amendment Center by Rob Nadelson. The meaning of militia in the Second Amendment. This is the second article examining the contributions to the understanding of the Constitution from the 3 brand new volumes, documenting the history of the ratification of the Constitution of the United States. My first article observed that probably the greatest contribution these 3 volumes is reproduction is indexed and is easy to use copy from. A 4th by TeknoAxe. Cox was a Pennsylvania businessman, economist, and member of the Confederation Congress. He later served as our first Assistant Secretary of Treasury. During the late 1787 and throughout 1788, he wrote a series of essays urging the Constitution's ratification. Cox wrote under 7 pseudonyms, but all 4 essays in the new volumes were signed a Pennsylvanian. Cox's essays were widely popular, and they unquestionably helped reconcile the American people to the new Constitution. The analysis of the Constitution's meaning helps us reconstruct the original understanding behind the document. My last article noted that the Pennsylvania essays, particularly 3rd, and explained the limits of federal power. The 3rd also contains information useful to understand the Second Amendment. That the amendment provides that a well-regulated militia be necessary to secure a free state. The right to people to keep bear arms shall not be infringed. The discussion of the right to keep bear arms was not plentiful during the ratification debate. There's one reason opponents of the individual right to keep and bear arms could maintain for so long as the Second Amendment guarantees only state power against the federal government. Specifically, opponents argue that the term militias refers to relatively small body soldiers actively under arms and supervised by each state. Advocates of the individual right theory countered that during the founding era, the term militia referred to the citizenry generally, or at least the able-bodied men between certain ages. This position was supported by James Madison, Federalist number 46, in which he referred Americans to a militia amounting to nearly 500,000 citizens with their arms in their hands. The number of 500,000 approximated the number of able-bodied men out of the population of the time. Alexander Hamilton, Federalist 29, provides some support of the individual right interpretation as well. But still, these writings do not state unequivocally that all able-bodied males were in the militia. To conclude that, one had to make inference. However, the writings of Cox were more direct in his 3rd Pennsylvania essay. He wrote as follows: capitalization and italics are his. The power of the sword, say the minority of Pennsylvania, is in the hands of Congress. My friends and countrymen, it is not so, for the power of the sword are in the hands of the yeomanry of America from 16 to 60. The militia of these free commonwealths, entitled and accustomed to their arms when compared with any possible army, must be tremendous and irresistible. Who are in the militia? Are they not ourselves? It is fear then that we shall turn our arms, each man against his own bosom. Congress have no power to disarm the militia. Their swords and every other terrible implement of the soldier are the birthright of an American. What clause in the state or federal constitution hath given away that important right? The limited power of the sword is not in the hands of either the federal or state governments, but where I trust in God will ever remain in the hands of the people. This passage leaves nothing to inference. Cox states explicitly that militia consists of every man from 16 to 60 of age. Prior to the publication of these new volumes, only a few experts were familiar with this passage. For example, Independence Institute David Koppel, the nation's leading Second Amendment scholar, published an article 20 years ago that reproduced Cox's words. It appeared in Cox of the right to keep and bear arms, 1787 to 1823. There's a link for that. However, publication of these new volumes enabled us to read this passage inaccessible in the context of Cox's entire essay. What do you gotta say? Natural born right, militia 60 to 60 years of age. Every man, not National Guard, every man. That's what a militia is about. This is why when people say about militias are bad and wicked and dangerous and they're terrorists and all that, you rather have the government do it for you, then you're in la la land. Plain and simple. That's why, my friends, government keep out. That's what the Bill of Rights means. No ands, ifs, or buts. We hear all this crap from these Yahoo Congress folks with their palmolive hands telling you what's right or wrong. Give them the big two middle fingers. Oh, the truck coming by. And hand them a bar of Palmolive soap. That is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us on social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or if you said something that's interesting and want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence with decorum. Plus, I will post all my footnotes, contacts, including email, social medias, on my Spreaker page. All right, my friends, once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.